Welcome to Universals Continued. This is where we'll be answering some of your questions about universal cabinets. We will be keeping this only on universals. So if you have any questions, please put them through and we will try to answer some of your questions. I'm going to share my screen and we will be using it to basically deal with any questions about the universals. One of the questions that comes up quite a bit is about sliding doors. I'm going to start with this one because basically it's one that normally a lot of people don't know where sliding doors are. Sliding doors is not actually in the standard universals. You normally find the standard universal under Tor Universal, but under Universal you've got a thing called the Universal 1. The Universal 1 is the only cabinet that can do sliding doors. If you look in the door section of it, under doors, you have a hinge section, but you have a sliding section. So by clicking to sliding doors, I can create a sliding door feature and have up to 5 sliding doors. With this, I can actually just use it to create a sliding door by using the universal features of turning off every other functionality of the universal. So I'm only going to turn off the top and bottom, but you can turn off the ends, the rails, and therefore you can just have a sliding door. And I'll show you that to be sure. And then turning off the rails, top, bottom. So you just end up with a sliding door in itself. Bear in mind that this is a sliding door where it will do panels, it will do a groove, but it won't do any particular machining due to certain machining types of sliding doors. So it won't do any drilling or won't do any functionality of that a sliding door might have. So it actually won't do the machining. All it will do is it will make you the panel, it will make you grooves for it, but that is about it. It will do a door jamb, flush ends, whatever, the track depth, stuff like that. It's not basically has any particular kind of machining in it. On the basis now, I'm going to go through ones that we got given beforehand. So I'm going to touch on the bifold. We are now going to show you how to do the bifolds because we actually have a solution to that.
It's sort of a solution. It will show it won't put the hinge plates on the cabinet, but we can at least show it, have the doors machined. I'm going to start with the Tool Universal, put that down, and I'm simply going to remove the doors. Next thing we'll do is go for a...
You'll find with a lot of how we do these universals, we always remove the doors. And the one thing for that is because you can always put back the doors afterwards after you've done everything. And that's the best way to do the doors, is last. Sorry.
No worries. I'm then going to take a tall 2-door standard cabinet. As long as the width, the height, and the kickboard height match, we'll set the doors to bifold and 4, not 0. My apologies. We'll go to shelves 1, we'll click custom, and then shelves 2 will pop up, and we'll set that as 0. That gets rid of all our shelves. Then to go labor and construction, we'll remove the top, remove the back, and remove the bottom. We can then go to kickboard, get rid of kickboard, and we here set the depth to 0. You can then grab those doors and place them on the front of the cupboard. Now, it won't donate the machining for the hinge plates. If you needed to report it, you could go to Hinge and then put in your 5 or 10 hinges or however many you need. That's purely for reporting there.
It will do most of the machining in the door, but it will not do the actual door hinges. You may want to also put in how much that cabinet is lift up, because it's basically going straight to the ground.
Once you remove the bottom, get rid of the kick, it sets that to 0. But as far as the 3D representation goes, and for machining of the doors themselves, there is the option.
The only thing it won't do is the actual hinges from the door, from the side to the end cabinet. You could keep the end basically not at 0, and you could basically extend the end all the way to the back and turn off the ends of the universal as well. So you don't need to turn that depth. You could keep those ends there. You could click on the original cabinet, turn off the ends in that. Under labor and construction, ends, left and right off, and then you basically slot that in. Make sure that it's at the correct height, or turn off detect collisions. If you turn back on detect collisions,
It just won't have the construction holes or the ends to the tops.
but I am going to basically talk about something else you can do with these doors at this point. At this point, you can, by turning off that includes, or even including them, turn off even pair, turn off the other one. I'm going to extend this one fully across. Now, bear in mind, this is on a tour and you would never really do this. I can put, so I'm extending it across, making it full. Sorry, I will cancel that for a second. Go back in, edit. I extended the door across to be full. And now what I can do is do bottom or top. And what I can do is I can set the hinges to be at the top of the door or the hinges at the bottom. This is the way I can create a door that lifts up. So apply that. Okay, there is one thing, as you can see, there is no hinges construction at this moment. And if I turn on machining, you will still not see them. This is because the hinges actually need to be initialized. So if I go into hinges, into here, I can now put in the 107 Blum overlay screw. And as you can see, they start to kick in, and I will need to put them in here. And I know you might think the pull down, but it needs to go in the lift. So bifolds unfortunately can't be done in universals. You can do them on all other doors, but you can't do them in universals. And the reason for that is because the nature of the universal means that it enables for multiple, its doors are distinct. They are basically cell doors, basically, and division doors are individual components. Can always basically bring them in from a CM part. I'm now going to talk about Splay. So I'm going to close this one down. Put back in a new tool universal. So with these two questions about bifold and splay, splay is also another one you can't really do in basically universals. You can edit the parts to basically change it, but that's not really under the universal components. Is there any questions? Anyone wanting basically things? As for a slope from the front, if you go under labor and construction, go to the ends, you can always basically recess the front of the end. That's not. It's not really, this is another one of those ones which I normally use with editing.
So there is a process to do this, and it's reasonably straightforward once you get your head around it. So we need to go to labor construction, then we go ends plus, and this is where it is here. So if we look at it from the side, we'll undo what Aaron's done. There,
The bottom one.
delete. So it's all in ends plus. Looking at the side, so your vertical is across, and then your horizontal is down, and it will do a vertical. If you then want it to be a step and then angled, that is the vertical offset. So we'll go the top. Now let's make this a 500, and we'll make this one 2000. Vertical's bottom to top. I ran the wrong way. Make that 200 there. I had my verticals and horizontals backwards. That's mighty embarrassing. 500. There we go. So that's how that works. It can go the other way. So I'll make that 2000 and that one 500.
Of course, this doesn't actually change the doors or the top. It will not actually splay those.
I apologize for my numbers being wrong. There we go. So you can do it that way. You can do the other end as well. You can do your divisions like that. If you wanted the, we'll get rid of the doors. Now let's say we want the bottom. We'll also remove the bottom, and we'll recess the front of that by 500. We'll get rid of the kick. And you can start to see how you can do shop fitting. If it goes the other way, you can have shelves that then set depth differently. You can't, if you do put in shelves, you can't set the front recess for each shelf within the same group. So you have to create multiple areas.
And we'll show that by basically going into the area, bringing up void on shelves. So you can recess it right here, the shelves themselves. So I could recess this back to 300 and it would recess the shelves. But you can then recess each of the shelf in that variety by themselves as well. So you could put in there minus 200, extend that forward. You could then extend this one forward minus 100. Now, if you put a minus into a recess, it extends. It's the same as when you recess a gap. And that way you can create this kind of effect. Now, you cannot have a door that recesses, and we do not have a panel that will recess on that value as well. So if you wanted to create a panel or a door that went on that angle, you wouldn't be able to do so.
So you can use this same principle to angle the back of a cabinet. It's a little bit unconventional because there is no default setting where you just say, I want to angle the back. What you have to do is imagine that the back is the front and the front is back. So we'll put down a new tool universal. This is a little bit of thinking outside the square. Go to doors and we'll turn off our div doors, and I'll get rid of the kicker while I'm at it. So the first thing we can do is go to ends plus, and we will set our vertical as 2000, our horizontal is 500, and we'll do that for the other side as well. Might make that 1000. Make it a bit easier to see. 500. We'll go to top and we'll set our recess on the front. It's 500. I'm going to go to back and I'm going to turn the back off. The next thing I'm going to do is change the material edging. So we do that 3 because that's that edge there. We'll untick edge 4. Do the same thing for our bottom. And we'll do the same thing for our left and right.
Effectively, you're just turning the cabinet around.
Now you want a back in there. So what we'll do is we'll go to area 1 and set a horizontal division. And we want that to be whatever that height there is. And the easiest way to find that is to go to machining, look at the end left, and click on that point. Now it is 1260, but you've also got to account for all the bottom. We'll go back to 3D wireframe, and we will get rid of the physical division. In the lower section, we're going to put in verticals. And then in vertical, I'm going to remove the back
and the 2 sides.
You now have a solid back in there. It will not have machining from the bottom into the vertical. The next thing we're going to do is go back to cabinet details, area 1, and set the upper section as shelves. This is where it gets a little bit interesting. So we'll make it 1 shelf. We'll make it fixed. As you can see, it's now got the machine holes. And we will set the angle, and it's probably going to be about 75 degrees. Not quite that. 65, we're getting there. 64. That's pretty close. Now it's just a matter of playing with this recess and this recess there to get it to work. So we'll put 80 in there. That's gone the other way. So we'll go 80 on that side. That is pretty well spot on. It will be a little bit oversized, but of course you will have to cut your miters on the panel sort of match. So that's not the end of the world. And that's how you get the cover that is sprayed at the back. You could do the same thing if you want it to be the bottom. You just obviously have your angles going the other way.
Now, if you wanted shelves in there, you would basically want to turn where it says the divider. You want to put in a second divider, and then you would put, say, shelves or whatever type of fittings you wanted in there, and you would set the value of it to probably the bottom.
You'd have the offset as 0.
And then you would basically want to set that as shelves or whatever you want to do.
Go to Area 1 content and our middle shelves. Set the offset as -1,000.
So you're sending it right to the bottom, and now you can basically populate the shelves upwards under Area 1 and basically change the shelves in there in the quantity to whatever value you want. As you can see, they extend upwards, and you could change the individual in under even height. You could then set that at something like 300. And as you can see, they just extend up as you want them to go. So you could use that to populate upwards and then recess them as you go. But you want to recess from the back, which is the only problem with this one.
But the back is the front.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So
you could go back to cabinet details for your middle, set the front recess as 10 mil. Except it's the back is the front is the back. Similar like that. Of course, you then have to go through the materials here and then change the orientation of all your edging. We'll go to there. That's probably going to be somewhere around 450.
And as you can see, you can use this to basically to populate it with shelves and create an angled back. Roundabouts. The universal, with a lot of these things, a lot of it is whatever you can imagine, you can probably find a solution. They are literally able to do a lot of things which are not normal with other cabinets. Now, I think we've actually exhausted the questions we've had so far that we had previous to this. So I am actually just going to go through, and if we get any other questions for any cabinets you want designed or things, I'm going to put down a couple of cabinets which I've used before and explained to people. So one that's very simple to do is a floor bin. It's kind of just a open top. I'm going to basically slightly branch into editing with it with 1 point, but it's basically a floor universal. As always, I always turn off the doors because I find the doors to be one of those things I'll put on afterwards. So by turning off the doors, I'm now going to put it into one horizontal division. And I'm going to set this horizontal division right to the top. So almost 500, maybe 550. So as you can see, I've got it right at the top. Now this is going to be having a panel up here. You can also use this to create rails. So a rail that goes at the top here. And if you just made this 80 mil from the top, you could put in a material, basically a vertical, which would just act as a horizontal rail. A vertical rail, I mean, sorry, not horizontal. Now I'm going to turn off that division and I'm going to turn the top division to a vertical. As you can see, it's created a flat bit. With this, I can now get rid of the left, the right, and the back. And if I look at this in actual 3D textured. This can also very simply be used as a way of making a fake no, not a lid. Basically if you had this on a tall cabinet that went straight to the ceiling, you could use it as a bulkhead. So, sorry, I just forgot the word bulkhead. My apologies about that. So now with basically the cabinet, I can put on doors if I wanted to. So I could have it as a door cabinet down here in the second row, and then I could have whatever I like in there. I could put a bin. So I could have it as a locking mechanism, and therefore you could actually have rubbish get put in there into a bin. But what I'm going to do is actually set it to drawers in the lower section, because I'm going to use one drawer. I'm going to go down to the drawer first off. Like all drawers, I'm basically going to set that to one drawer. Under drawers hardware, I'm going to change the premium drawer, and I'm going to look for something called the Lincoln Century. The Lincoln Century, of course, creates bins. So very simply, I can now put a door back on there, include in height, and I could recess this back if I wanted to, or I could even recess the actual panel at the front forward to basically fit, to make that basically so that it actually is in shape for it. I'm not going to really go too much into that, because basically we covered how to recess the drawers last week. But to do so, and I'll just quickly cover it, is to put in here 16 mil. And as you can see, I have now, well, it's slightly more because I believe I have 18 mil material. But as you can see, it is now level with that top drawer, with that top part. And I would need to create gaps so that it fitted in perfectly. But now I'm going to come to editing. I did say I was going to do a slight bit of editing. If I go to machining, I go to the front, there's only one piece in there. And as you can see, I have one piece of vertical. I'm going to click on the editing tool. In here, I'm going to click on lock. I'm going to make sure I have the rail. Basically click on lock. That's the rail of the why did it jump to the other? There we go. Unlock. Rectangle, sorry about that. And all I do is I create a sufficient gap like that. Double click on it to bring up its details. And in here, I would unlock this. I can change the X position and the size of it. And I can go into here and type in the word cutout, which is one of the magical layers that goes to the CNC. I can now return to page view, turn off view. And if you look at that, I have a space that I can throw rubbish through into a bin. I will now look to see if there's any questions. All righty. All righty.
So just before we finish up, our webinar for next week, the 12th of May, today's the 12th of May, 19th of May, will be Polyshapes, and Aaron will be running that one. And the one after that on the 26th is editing parts with Machine Editor. So the idea is by the end of May, if you've stuck with us through these webinars, you can just about draw anything in CabMaster.
And the editing parts with that will be, at this point, done by Mike. So, yeah. All righty. We thank you for your time, and you have a great day.